Spring 197 AD. Cao Cao personally led an army to conquer Zhang Ji of Wancheng. Zhang Ji knew that he was invincible, so he led the crowd to surrender. Seeing Zhang Ji so knowledgeable, Cao Cao was proud and in a good mood. He banqueted Zhang Ji and his generals in the barracks. During the banquet, Cao Cao talked and laughed loudly with everyone, cheers to others with pleasant, but the personal guard Dian Wei always held a big axe standing behind Cao Cao and glaring angrily. At this meal, Zhang Ji embroidered into a cold sweat. Later, Cao Cao took a fancy to Zhang Ji's henchman Hu Chair by sending him a lot of gold and silver. Cao Cao had always loved talent. The move was likely to be a whim, but he ignored Zhang Ji, who had just returned at this time, until Cao Cao couldn't wait. After winning over his generals, Zhang Ji's heart was even more uneasy. At that time, there was a beautiful and sexy widow, Ms. Zhou, in the city. Cao Cao had always liked wives of other people. When he heard about this, he was impatient. That night, he brought Ms. Zhou to his barrack, having sex all night. Excitement, he had forgotten the identity of Ms. Zhou. This Ms. Zhou was Zhang Ji's widow, and Zhang Ji was Zhang Xiu's uncle. Speaking of which, Zhang Xiu could dominate Nanyang to become a warlord. It is still the power of his uncle Zhang Ji who inherits it. Objectively, the hungry tiger like Cao Cao was too hungry. As soon as Zhang Xiu surrendered, you took his aunt to bed. What do you think about him? Sure enough, Zhang Xiu was furious when he heard this and cursed. Cao Cao learned that Zhang Xiu was not happy. He did not go to appease. Instead, he secretly prepared to kill Zhang Xiu. As a result, the plan was leaked. It's come to this. Zhang Xiu could no longer be indifferent. He immediately called Jia Shu. After deliberating, the two decided to rebel. That night, Zhang Xiu suddenly led troops to attack Cao's barracks. Cao's army was caught off guard and suffered heavy casualties. Fortunately, Dian Wei led a dozen people to block the door and fight to the death. Cao Cao was able to escape by a horse. Later, Zhang Xiu's soldiers gathered more and more. All the people around Dian Wei died in battle. Dian Wei himself was wounded, but he was still fighting. Zhang Xiu originally wanted to capture him alive, but the two soldiers who went up just near him, they were pinched alive by Dian Wei with both arms. The crowd was terrified. No one dares to move in anymore. Dian Wei rushed forward again and killed several enemies alone, but in the end, due to excessive blood loss, he died with angry cursing. Cao Cao's horse also died during his escape in the chaos. His eldest son, Cao Ang, saw this. He voluntarily gave up his horse to his father. Eventually, Cao Ang and Cao Cao's nephew Cao Ang Min both died in the fight. Cao Cao retreated to Wu Yin before stabilizing his position. Yu Jin and other generals also came to rendezvous one after another. Zhang Xiu then pursued him to there but was defeated. After returning, Zhang Xiu again allied with Liu Biao and held on to Rangcheng. Cao Cao withdrew to Shudu with the remnants of his army. Then the first battle with Zhang Xiu ended. The battle was a small one. To the chaotic situation in the Central Plains at that time, it also did not produce much shock. But for Cao Cao personally, and the family of Cao, the impact was extremely far-reaching. First of all, at the time, Dian Wei was one of Cao Cao's favorite martial generals. His death distressed Cao Cao, crying several times soon. He then sent someone to retrieve Dian Wei's body from the trail, burying thickly. Every time Cao Cao passed his tomb later, he would stop to mourn. If Cao Cao remembers the death of Dian Wei, from the point of view of Cao Cao standing to gather people's hearts and minds, he can still do so with honor. While the death of Cao Ang became the biggest hidden pain in Cao Cao's heart, soon, Cao Cao's wife, Lady Ding, broke with him because of this, and Cao Cao himself couldn't let it go until his dying day. On his deathbed, Cao Cao sighed and said, "I have never regretted anything I have done in my life. and if there is still a soul after death, and if Cao Ang asks me where his mother is, what shall I answer? Cao Ang's death even more profoundly affected the political situation after Cao Wei. Although Cao Ang is the son of a concubine, but he was raised by his wife, Lady Ding. He was Cao Cao's nominal eldest legitimate son. He was Cao Cao's undisputed successor, and Cao Ang has a humble personality, both good at civil and military, deeply loved by Cao Cao. Cao Ang has been fighting with his father since he was a teenager. Of all Cao Cao's sons, only Cao Ang had enough prestige in the army. The death of Cao Ang made it inevitable that the Cao family would be followed by a serious internal conflict over the throne.